I mean, I think inexperience got the best of them when it comes down to the playoffs, but this is a Super Bowl team and something when the Jaguars, you go into next season with more continuity. The coaching staff is staying. And the fact of the matter is Trevor Lawrence has gotten better and better and better and gotten more consistent, especially towards the end of this past season. This football team is really supercharged. This next season, you added a little more fuel to that fire, some defensive line talent, maybe some more help in the secondary, some more offensive line prowess. Like this team is a really, really close competitive football team that absolutely has to be in the conversation for Super Bowl talks next year. So let's talk about the Jaguars. Let's grade the season. Let's grade the players. Let's talk about the needs because there are still needs, even though it's one of the most complete rosters in the NFL. And I'm not afraid to say that. And the coaching staff is amazing. I love Liam Cohen and what the job he did. Grant Udinsky, Anthony Campolini, all the entire coaching staff from top to bottom has really transformed this team. And the roster itself, the offensive line, is very, very good. Now, it's not elite unit, and it definitely can get better. And the one thing I will say is they have to start looking at some of these contracts, which are big. Between like Ezra Cleveland's not that expensive, nor is Patrick McCarry, Robert Hazy. They're actually all very cheap considering deals for the way that they're built this offensive line. However, they do need to start planning for the future a little more. One of those picks, Wyatt Milam, third round selection in this past draft. Your hope is that he can develop into one of those starters. Guard in maybe the third, fourth round once again, though, would make a lot of sense depending on BPA. They could take one any really where that they want in the draft to be one of those long term successions for that guard position to get a little cheaper and get a little younger because they've got other players to pay. So that would be my only recommendation, really, on this offensive line. I feel like a tackle, they're in a very good spot with Anton Harrison and Cole Van Lennon, who would down the stretch really. That was a great trade. It was like a seventh round pick to the Packers to get Cole Van Lennon, who came right into that left tackle position, and he was excellent down the stretch for them. Unfortunately, did get injured and was able to play in that Bills game. Walker Little, I like him as a swing tackle, swing guard. He can play all over the field, but clearly, I don't think he's a high level starter, and they could try to maybe invest in a developmental swing tackle to get a little cheaper in that regard. Not gonna cut Walker Little or anything like that because of his contract. Also, I apologize about the typo there. I clearly don't know how to spell. How can I not know how to spell Little? Stuart Little, great movie. But here we go back to the offensive line. A swing tackle later in the draft, a guard somewhere to be able to develop with Wyatt Milam, continue to get younger and cheaper on this offensive line and try to add more talent. But from top to bottom, there's not really a weak link. I like Patrick McCarr maybe a little bit more than Jags fans even would say. I've watched all the games, and I thought McCarr, besides a couple of games, was actually really, really good. I would grade him as a better pass protector than Ezra Cleveland. I think Ezra Cleveland is a better run blocker than McCarry, but McCarry was really, really sound in his protections. Yes, some of the penalty stuff was a problem for McCarry throughout the season. He was their most penalized offensive line. That's something he can work on and get a little bit better at. But I really do like him, and I don't want to think that he is the guy that I'm trying to move on from quickly. Getting younger, getting cheaper, though, always in play, and getting better on the offensive line is easily a top priority for this football team. Generally speaking, though, they've got a very good offensive line. Anton Harrison had some of the most impressive on the move run blocking in that Buffalo Bills game. Like those second level blocks where I was just like going crazy. I was having like a Quinn Nelson versus the Raiders game earlier in the season where I'm like, oh my gosh, he is destroying dudes. And that's the way I felt with Anton Harrison in that Buffalo Bills game. And throughout the season, Harrison had some really, really good games, and he's turning into a very, very solid starter for this football team. So just generally, and to conclude, absolutely, we can still look at the offensive line. It's not the number one need. On to the tight end room. This is one of the bigger needs, I think, on the offense is finding some depth at the tight end room because when Brenton Strange was injured early in the season, their production at the tight end room was really not good. Yeah, I mean, Johnny Munt's a good veteran who has good blocking experience. I think Quentin Morris can step up and do a solid blocker for them too, and I think can fill in for that Munt role if they want to move and get a little cheaper from Johnny Munt. Hunter Long as a third, fourth tight end's fine, as some depth, cheap depth, etc. However, I do think they need a viable backup in here in case Strange is injured or the way that they're going to use these tight ends. They are using tight ends, so having that good number two guy who can also be a little bit more of a threat in the receiving game while also being a solid run blocker, to me makes a lot of sense. And that's why I think a tight end is somewhere in the third, fourth round conversation in this draft. Find somebody who can be a really good 1-2 punch with Brenton Strange, Plus, Strange will be going to a contract year. That's something else to look at if they're unable to retain Brenton Strange, who I like Brent Strange a lot, and I think he was really, really solid this season. Not elite, but very good this season. On to the receiving core. They hit gold when they got Jacoby Myers on that trade. He made an impact right away, except for like that first game. I think he had that one drop, but besides that, like he got rolling. He was so good in the run blocking game. That's one of the things I want to note about this team in general. Like Parker Washington, Jacoby Myers, I want to shout them out for some of the run blocking stuff that they did throughout the season because I was really impressed with the hustle that they played with as a run blockers. Even Brian Thomas is not terrible, but I think that Jacoby Myers a really, really good run blocker, and there were so many highlight plays where I'm just like, there's Jacoby Myers again making a great run block. Not just what he does in the receiving game that goes in that rating right there. It's also what he does in the run game is so impressive. And my voice is just, I'm getting emotional out here with Jacoby Myers, but he's a really good wide receiver. Gets that contract, well deserved. Parker Washington, great down the stretch, and he really has been a surprise element, and he's developed into a really good wide receiver as well. So this room from top to bottom, I do think Brian Thomas can bounce back next year. Sophomore slump, expect him to be better. Hopefully some of those drop scenarios can get more improved going into next season. Still a very tough wide receiver to guard. Got to get a little bit better though, more consistent next season. You got Travis Hunter, to me, needs to work into more of a, I would prefer him, especially with the wide receivers that they have right now, to be more of a 10 snap wide receiver, get in certain packages sort of thing, let him play cornerback more full time. That's my view on it. And in listening to their after conference press conference, I think that's what they're going to be looking to do next year. And that's what I would be really looking forward to is having Travis Hunter play more one central position and then have wide receiver be more of a gadget sort of thing where they use him in certain packages and certain important scenarios. That makes a lot of sense for Travis Hunter, who I still view as a top tier player. Just simply put, the injury was unfortunate and what it shut him down, week 9 through the rest of the season, something like that. But either which way, I still think Hunter is a top player. I'm not worried about, the injury situation so much. Some of it is a little concerning, I guess, but generally speaking, I still think Hunter is one of the most talented prospects I've seen come out of the draft. Year number 2 is really where you expect some of those returns to happen with Travis Hunter. Besides that, though, Diami Brown, not much this season. Tim Patrick, so finding a little bit of depth here just in case / a late round draft pick is what I'll be doing, not an early need. Running back. You got Travis Etienne, who had a really good season. Bashal Tutin, who looked really, really good in limited role. And I think that they're going to feel that he is the starter next year. He was pushing, and I mean, that rating even is a little low for Tutin. Just want to see more of a bigger sample size. However, I do think Tutin can be the lead back for this football team. And that is why I think they're going to let go of Travis Etienne. As good of a football player as he is, the fact is that Bashal Tutin, to me, looks to be the guy for them. And then LaQuint Allen, I mean, this guy is a rugged dude. He is not afraid to step in and make some tough blocks. Love LaQuint Allen coming out of Syracuse. He's a great receiving back for them, too. So maybe you add in a smasher in here in free agency, and that's really about all you really do need. Besides that, they've got a pretty good run rotation between Tutin and Allen if that's the way that they want to go. Get that third guy. Maybe Quinton Jackson could be somebody there too as that thumper in between the tackles. For right now, though, maybe you bring in a free agent or a late round draft pick in combination to be some more depth if you do let go of Travis Etienne. Not an early need or anything like that into this draft. Quarterback. The only thing I will say here is finding a backup for the long haul. Nick Mullins, fine, but they could upgrade there in that backup role and find somebody on a cheap contract for 4 years. Makes a lot of sense. Trevor Lawrence, though, T-Law, he makes some of the most impressive throws in the NFL. It was just a matter of consistency in this year, especially the second half of the year. He looked a lot more consistent and looked like the quarterback that was taken number 1 overall as the generational talent. Good to see Trevor Lawrence, T-Law, in action over here for the Jags. So we don't need to do too much there. Quarterback, find a long-term backup. Defensively now, let's talk defensive line. This is an area that they need help and they need to improve this offseason. One of the biggest priorities on this team, in my opinion, is improving the depth and looking at the longevity of the interior of the defensive line. Eric Armstead was on fire. He was like playing one of the best defense tackles in the NFL for the first couple of weeks. Cooled down, had that hand injury, wasn't really the same. And yeah, I mean, after that, it was a shoulder hand or something like that. But either which way, he didn't look the same there, and that certainly was hampering him. I still am not in the camp of cutting him. I know the puns out here with Anthony Campanelli, but I do think they should keep Eric Armstead, just he's just too valuable unless they can find a significant upgrade day one, which to me, I think is going to be hard to find unless like Caleb Banks falls to them or Peter Woods, something like that crazy, which I don't expect to happen. And maybe you got free agency. I don't know if they can get John Franklin Myers or Sheldon Rankins type. Those would definitely help. But I think that Eric Armstead still with the continuity, just keep him rather than take the dead cap. Bringing in another veteran free agency doesn't or free agent doesn't really make a whole ton of sense to me. Just keep him, draft somebody, develop, go from there. That's really my philosophy on this. Devon Hamilton, he is an underrated player in the sense that while he doesn't bring much pass rush, he is a great run defender, one of the better premier run defenders in the NFL. This team, I don't know how many games that they allowed running backs to even get any sort of lanes. They were so good. And part of it's on the linebackers too, but Hamilton was excellent up on that interior, just stopping the run, eating doubles, all those sort of things. What he does in the run game is fantastic, really good. Once again, he's not a pass rusher. He doesn't add much there, but he is a very good run defender. They need to add more pass rushers, though, on the interior. The lack of pass rush besides Armstead, Josh Hines Allen, and Walker was injured for a good amount. We already mentioned Armstead. So it was really Josh Hines Allen for a good chunk of the season having to do it all himself, and they just don't have the depth here. Dwayne Schmoot, Emmanuel Ogba weren't really much of a factor, in my opinion, this season. Gardeck was good. I do like Gardeck, and I would prioritize bringing him back as some good depth. And I love his versatility, too. I mean, what he can bring for you is really, really nice. I will be looking at defensive line talent. Pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. We need some more depth. And maybe even a long-term nose tackle who can rotate in there with Devon Hamilton would be nice. Mason Smith has just not been able to step up. I mean, maybe he'll get there at some point. You never know. Defensive tackle can be a position that later on in your career you can get better at, especially with the tools that he has. For right now, though, to me, they got to improve that positioning. Linebacker, Devin Lloyd, a beast, one of the best linebackers in the NFL this season. He played fantastic. He was the big moment versus the Kansas City Chiefs, that 99-yard touchdown that basically changed the game for them and won them that one. He was a difference maker this entire season. Bringing him back would absolutely be a priority for me. However, the contract scenario, they're not going to franchise tag him because it would be like $27 million because he'd get included with the edge rushers. That's just too much, right? And the fact of the matter is, there are going to be teams like the Raiders, for example. They're going to open up the piggy bank that have a little bit more cash to spend on a guy like Devin Lloyd. And that is why, look, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I do think that there's a very real chance that you're going to see Devin Lloyd go sign somewhere else. And that's what it is, right? I mean, he's going to get paid 20 plus million dollars. That's just what it is. He had a fantastic season and he's a great football player. He's going to get the big bucks. The Jags have money, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. Overall, we'll see what happens. I think they're going to have to start thinking about it. At least this could be a draft pick need. This could be a free agency need. It could be a little bit of combination. Is Jack Kaiser ready to step up into that starting role? You got Ventrell Miller, who's a nice solid third linebacker, in my opinion. I don't know if I feel confident with him being the starter next season. You got Fulasada Luakon, great linebacker, still one of the premier linebackers in the middle of a defense. Not cutting him, not moving on. You're keeping him. Restructure, do whatever you got to do. He's still, 30 years old, 31. Not worried about that with Luakon. He's a beast. On to the cornerback room. This is an area where we need to talk about this a little bit because I know, and including myself, I've been mocking cornerback to this football team quite a bit. But I do think that they've got the guys in here. They've got a very young core. It just comes down to prioritizing Busta Brown, bringing back Montrae Brown, who I love. That guy, oh man, I can't state it enough. Busta Brown was a dude coming out of Arkansas, fell in love with, and I'm so glad that the Jaguars have really kept that belief in him and given him an opportunity to play. And he was one of their best, most reliable corners the entirety of this season. Actually, he was their most reliable corner all season long, in my opinion. I thought their weak link this year was Greg Newsome. To me, Newsome was their clear and utter weak link. I still am not against bringing back Newsome, but it's got to be on a 1-year cheap contract as depth to prove himself, sort of thing. If an injury were to arise, Newsome, I'm cool with him stepping up in that scenario. My view on it, though, is he needs to be more of a depth corner. You have Travis Hunter, let him be more of a starter. Bring back Busta. Have Jordan Lewis in the slot. Jerry Jones is your fourth corner who can rotate in there with Jordan Lewis, because Jones was their most playmaker type of corner, I feel like. And he made the most amount of like flash plays, in my opinion, out of all these guys. Jones was super impressive, even though he wasn't a full time starter for them. Run defense has been a thing with Jerry and Jones, and I think that's one of the reasons why, because of the missed tackles and things like that, why they don't start him full time. But generally speaking, I thought Jones was really impressive in coverage. Even Christian Braswell, not a bad little backup cornerback, especially as a fifth guy to have on the roster. Not too bad, right? So their cornerback's not too bad as long as they bring back some of these dudes like Busta. And, depending on Greg Newsome, if they can get him on a 1 year cheap contract to prove himself. He already said, hey, I really want to be back. I want to prove myself. And I'm down with that. I'm okay with that. But he is going to have to earn it. He's going to have to work for it and come back on a cheaper deal for them, I imagine, to come back. Safety, very interesting conversation here because I think Antonio Johnson was fantastic. He should be a starter next season for this football team. Eric Murray's under contract. He's probably going to be around because half of his contract basically is guaranteed, the money wise. Now, Dewey is a tough conversation. Andrew Wingard, I love what he brings off the field. There's no question, like he screams Duval. He's the type of guy you want in your locker room. Could they bring him back on another cheap contract? Absolutely. Well, I'll let them play that out, and I'll talk more about that in free agency. I just don't think he's a full-time starter. A great backup, and once again, a great special teamer type of, dude you want on your football team. As a center fielder, I don't love it. He just doesn't quite have that range. And that's why I think Ransaw really needs to be able to step up into that role. And I want to give him every opportunity. Like drafting somebody with their second, third round pick, unless it's like somebody we cannot pass up on that you see as a clear starter for you, it just doesn't make sense. You spend a third round pick on Ransaw. He's super talented. Coming out to Tulane, the guy is a really athletic dude, can be that true center fielder. And that's why my opinion on this is like you have Johnson as one of your starters. You have Eric Murray, who's going to be coming back more than likely. Ransaw, your hope is that he wins the job from Eric Murray and ends up being that center fielder to go along with Antonio Johnson. Eric Murray, they can rotate in there at safety. You even have Rayon Lane, who showed some nice flashes, not just on special teams, but also, when he was out there too playing. So I like Rayon Lane as well. I think they've got some solid safety talent. It is probably the weakest spot right now, like on paper, I guess. But generally speaking, there is some optimism. They've got some youth. This is a tough one for me on whether or not you need to spend another draft pick. They've spent some draft picks on it, and that's why I would say maybe bring in a veteran, bring back Dewey if you want. Overall, this is going to be one of those where I maybe put on the back burner for another season, go the veteran route, and then wait and see how things go with Ransaw. Let's go on to the coaching staff now, and it starts with Liam Cohen as the head coach, Jacksonville Duval, right? And this was a team where you got that sense of Duval, and through, Liam Cohen's a guy where you just want to put the helmet on, you want to go out there and play 110% every rep. Absolutely. I would listen to his press conference or his after game speeches and stuff. Just, yeah, I really am a big fan of Liam Cohen. And then you got Grant Udinski as the OC. He's going to get a head coaching job at some point. Anthony Campolini's going to get a head coaching job, I think, at some point. So these guys are really, it's a tight-knit unit, and you can clearly see they have changed the game. Whatever the heck you want to call it, culture, this and that, I don't know, whatever. It just works here in Duval. Campanelli on defense was so impressive. Golly, I thought he did a great job mixing in coverage all season long, from the cover 8 to cover 6 scheme, the Bangio style, to the Brian Flores 6-man pressures. He did those at one of the highest levels in the NFL, and he did them really, really well. I thought they did a fantastic job of actually converting those into real pressures. And in terms of man to zone, they were more of a heavy zone team. I think they played zone like 70% of the time compared to man. It's like 22. But man, they just do a good job mixing in coverages, diagnosing schemes between two high shell looks and stuff like that, and open and closed fields. I think they're really, really good at creating diversion on defense and creating a ton of turnovers. They were one of the highest turnover teams in the NFL. I think they were second in the league. All around, really, really impressive for Anthony Campolini and this defensive squad. All together, coaching staff was great. No changes need to be made. On to the free agency strategy. Starting off with the team cuts. Johnny Munt's going to be the one cut here. It's not a priority cut, but it is something we can save a little bit of cash flow. And cash flow is king. Teams and ownership, they really just care about the cash flow. They don't care about the cap. They're going to let the financial tax turbo experts do all that sort of stuff. Help file with your taxes and get your savings up. But that's what they're going to do. That is all accounting equation stuff. The cash flow is what matters, and that's the number that we're going to use. The Jaguars and Shad Khan has showed that he will spend about 110% above the cap, and that puts it for around 334 million, a rough projection. I'm going to leave some leeway there just for budget concerns and whatnot. They currently, after this cut, have about $234 million in allocations for their current state where they're at in the roster. Now, let's go into the exclusive restricted period and restricted situation. Keith Taylor's the only one here that is restricted. I decided to let him go. They could bring back a lot of these guys. They're going to pick and choose and see if is coming off an injury. Maybe they decide not to do that. Maybe they decide, hey, we'll go ahead and keep you in training camp, see how things look, and then they move on from them there. These are not going to be guaranteed contracts, really. Christian Braswell is the only guy where I'd say prioritize, make sure you bring him back as a good fourth, fifth, sixth corner. Really, at this point, like fifth, sixth corner, and that's totally fine. And then we have some practice squads, some miscellaneous budget. These are going to be for like injury designations and all that other stuff, cap, etc. There's a lot of things you can talk in behind the scenes. Now, let's go on to the team free agency period here, where we are going to bring back Quentin Morris, and that is it on the offense side of the ball as a good, solid third, even a little bit of a backup tight end, good, solid blocker there. Travis Etienne was a tough decision. I'm hearing the Bears are very interested. I think he'll get more money elsewhere, and that is why I'm going to let him go strictly for that, trying to be realistic. He's going to end up testing the market. I doubt they're going to give him the franchise tag. Then we go on to the defense, where I do want to bring back Dennis Gardeck. I thought he was really, really good. He's a high effort player and definitely somebody I would love to have as a backup edge rusher, special teamer. $6 million on average, 2 years, $12 million. No problem about that. And then we are going to bring back Montreux Busta Brown on a 3-year, $30 million contract. He's earned it. Absolutely want to pay him. Homegrown talent. Let's bring those guys back. He's developed really into a great player. Greg Newsome, 1 year, $5 million. It could be a little less. I wouldn't go any more than that, though. Personally, if he wants more than that, then you say, all right, maybe $6 million would be my maximum there. But if he wants more than that, then I would say, all right, you're going to let him walk because he was more of their liability this season. If you're having him as a fourth, fifth corner, and that way you keep Travis Hunter fresh and being able to play on both sides of the field, then that's fine. And that's why I'm prioritizing doing that. It's not a must, but it is something I do think would be nice. Dewey, I know I could see them bringing him back, especially later on. Who knows? But I do think he'll test free agency, and we'll see what happens with him. Devin Lloyd, very tough decision here, but the dollars are going to come what it's going to come down to. I think he's going to get $20+ million, possibly $21 to $23 million. He's going to get paid, and that is where this is just a very tough scenario. We have enough cash, but it would definitely strap just a little bit. So that is ultimately why I think that he's going to get a bigger contract and make that business decision for him and his family. And I get it. I get to say he's earned it. On to the free agent period now, where we're going to sign a couple of strategic pieces here. Isaiah Pacheco as that nice little hammer runner to go along there with Tootin and LaQuint Allen. I think that's a nice little combination of 3 skill sets that bring to the table between receiving, pounder, and speed. Then you got Tyler Johnson as some depth at wide receiver. Just going to be a 4th, 5th, 6th wide receiver for them compete. Defensively wise, Sebastian Joseph Day. We steal the in-division man from Tennessee as some good depth. He's a solid rotational player for Tennessee in that pass rush on their defensive line. Then we got Quay Walker. Campbellini's probably saying, hey, let's go get Quay Walker in here. We lose out on Devin Lloyd. So you bring in Quay Walker, 4 years, $60 million. He's only, 25 years old right now, so he's in the prime of his career. And it's $15 million on average. It's quite a bit of money. More than likely, it's going to be about $2.5 million of that, or 2.5 years of guaranteed money in this contract. So maybe you say about $40 million of that is going to be guaranteed. And is going to be $20 million of that upfront in cash for some signing bonus and kind of backload that sort of thing to help out with their cap situation, which just makes sense, obviously financial equation standpoint wise. But Quay Walker comes in there to anchor up and with full side of Lewican. Quay Walker is a hammer in the middle. He's a sideline to sideline guy. He's had some limitations in coverage. But hey, Lloyd had a little bit of limitations in coverage when he first came on, and Campbellini got the best out of him. I think this season maybe he can do the same thing with Quay Walker here and some experience they have. So draft spend, $20 million. That could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but I'm going to say at least $20 million. They don't have a first-round pick, so they don't have to allocate towards that situation at least. So let's go on to the roster before the draft and talk about the needs once more real quick. Offensive line, yeah, I want to try to spend somewhere between a day 2 or a day 3 pick, continuing to find offensive line depth, really important. Not a huge need, but it is something we need to look at. And always improving the offensive line is important. Wide receiver, maybe day 3, somewhere mid to late day 3. Running back could be a late round throw slash UDFA pickup. Quarterback, maybe a late day or day 3 selection to find a backup for the long haul. Tight end would be maybe the earliest need out of any of these is finding somebody who could be a good number 2 backup. And that to me is a day 2 selection for them. Then on the defense side of the ball, defensive line. That is going to be my number one priority here. We are going to spend multiple picks on the defensive line. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Besides that, I think they're in a pretty good spot here. Safety would be the only thing where I'd say, all right, maybe if there's a BPA situation, I would consider it. But my hope is that Ransaw can beat out Eric Murray. You go into next season with Antonio Johnson, Caleb Ransaw. Ransaw is that back end free safety who can really roam the field. And then Antonio Johnson is the opposite, kind of like more the robber, come down to the box approach. Rayon Lane can be that third, fourth safety with Eric Murray. That would be fantastic. Maybe they won't be as optimistic. I don't know. Linebacker, I'm okay with. They got Jack Kaiser. They spent a early fourth round pick on. Maybe he can develop too to be a good number 3 linebacker with Ventrell Miller. They could also spend a late round pick on that. Cornerback, I feel really good about with their cornerback room, especially if Travis Hunter ends up being a starter for them on the cornerback room and plays more corner full time. But let's move on to the draft now, and it is that time for the Jaguars to go through this and start with Malachi Lawrence, edge rusher from UCF. This is where it's a value standpoint. I do think defensive tackle is probably the bigger of the two needs. However, the value is edge rusher when you look at the board. Unless somebody falls, Peter Woods goes crazy, or Caleb Banks, you've got guys like Lee Hunter, Christian Miller maybe. It's going to be an interesting scenario, but my guess is that those guys are off the board. And edge rusher seems like a very, very good value, whether it's a Zion Young, Malachi Lawrence, or you can go down the board here. R. Mason Thomas, scheme-wise, what do they want to do? Maybe you look for more of a 4-3 guy. They play a little bit of multitude on their defense. I think Malachi Lawrence is very well-versed, and he can do a multitude of things. Lawrence is going to be that creative pass rusher early on for this football team as he works on his more stacking and shedding ability as a run defender, and that is totally fine because you have Walker. You have Josh Hines-Allen as your day 1 starters, of course. However, Lawrence gives you that toolbox where he can be that third pass rusher, and you can move Trayvon Walker to the interior early on. And that's one way to get Lawrence out there as a rookie. Just makes a lot more sense to get another pass rusher into the fold somehow, some way. And then we're not done with pass rushers. We're going with Grayson Holton here from OU, Oklahoma, who was really good at the Senior Bowl, showing off that twitch and that explosive gear that he has to shoot gaps. Very good at that. Yes, his play strength is not great. He's going to, be more of a liability early on in the run game. That's fine. You've got Devon Hamilton there, who's a great run defender, and Holton can be just more of a rotational pass rusher. Hopefully, hey, for James Gladstone, maybe he can be your Colby Turner type of player in the 3rd round that he was able to find with the Rams. That's kind of my same sort of draft range. I think Turner was around pick 89 in the 3rd round for the Rams. This is 81 here for the Jags. So trying to find that hyper-up pass rusher in Grayson Holton who can work into that role for Eric Armstead for the future. And then we're not done with some help on the offense, right? Let's go ahead and a playmaker there. Justin Jolly. If you're feeling jolly, if you're feeling Christmas season, here's your guy. He's going to be that great number 2 tight end with Brenton Strange. He also is a pretty good blocker, especially for his size. I mean, he's got a solid, dense frame. He's a loose athlete. He's got some really good crisp routes on film. He's got the Greg Jennings, broken leg sort of thing and put the team on my back approach to him as well. I think Jolly's a great tight end and can be somebody in this tight end room that continues to just get you another playmaker and help out if Strange gets injured, have somebody else in the room. Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech is going to be their developmental right guard behind Patrick McCarry. So now we've got 2 really solid developmental 2 guards for the future. At least that would be the hope. Even if just one of them works out, then that'd be good, right? They need to get a little cheaper at one of those scenarios. And that is why I'm going to add in Keelan Rutledge, who had some ups and downs of the Senior Bowl. I thought he won some reps dominantly, but he also lost some reps. He's more your big bruiser in the middle of your offensive line that can run block really well. He's got extreme strength at the point of attack. and that will play for them in the run blocking game for sure. And pass pro, he's an anchor. Nick Barrett, South Carolina, defensive tackle. He's an anchor of a defensive lineman. So I'm trying to find a good balance here. We got Grayson Holton as the pass rusher. Now we go get more of a good backup behind Devon Hamilton, who's gone through his own injury situations. Barrett is going to be a nice run defending early down player for this football team. Colby Young, a lot of upside. He's got some off the field stuff, but the talent is all there with Colby Young as that fourth, fifth wide receiver who can rotate in there as a big weapon on the perimeter. That's what I'm looking at for this one. So that's really about it. Just trying to find a little bit of depth at wide receiver. You got Kieran Crawford from Auburn, who was really good at the Senior Bowl, especially in the game. He was probably one of the best edge rushers in that game. He got multiple pressures. Yeah, he was beating up and picking up on Jude Bowery, who was kind of getting picked on all game. But I still want to give credit to Crawford. He looked really nice, looked explosive off the edge, and just give him another pass rusher specialist early on for this football team. Why the heck not? Have a good depth, a good fifth, sixth guy in your room. Then we get into late day 3 picks. Luke Altmaier, going to hopefully be that long-term backup behind Nick Mullins. And then you got Riley Mahlman from Wisconsin, a developmental swing tackle here. And finally, Jam Miller, just more depth at running back, a speedster there who can be a fourth, fifth running back competing with Quinton Jackson, practice squad and whatnot. So that is it for the draft for free agency. Here is everything that we were able to do. The offensive line, probably going to keep around 10 guys. Could they keep 11? Possibly, if they really want to keep Mahlman or if they want to keep Hodges, or maybe this case scenario too, they could cut Chuma Adoga. That would save them about $2.5 million or something like that too, which is a possibility. You never know. If they feel like, hey, let's go and keep Riley Mahlman as our OT4, then you do something like that. And that's really where it comes down to training camp. They'll have some competition for maybe that 10th and final roster spot. So, and then wide receiver wise, you look at this, we say to ourselves, you got your starting 3. You got Travis Hunter working at corner, of course, and then coming on some money downs, Tyler Johnson and Colby Young. And then maybe if you want to keep Joshua Cephas, or you can keep somebody around here for a 6th type of wide receiver. Tight end, we get Justin Jolly to be that backup of Strange, Hunter Long, Quentin Morris. Those would be your nice little tight end room to add some good depth there. And a running back room wise, you got your good solid tandem of speed, power, and receiving pass protection guys there. And we added some depth with Jam Miller, which Quan Jackson. Finally, quarterback Luke Altmaier, as I mentioned, hopefully will be that backup long haul. Defense. We didn't get any secondary picks, any linebacker picks. That might be a little controversial. I think we got good depth though at the cornerback room. Have Travis Hunter play more full-time at corner. Safety, I want to see what you got from Caleb Ransaw. If they're not feeling confident there, maybe you call up Dewey again, or you go sign some veteran there and go that route. But Ray and Lane's got to watch out too for it. But defensive line was the big hammer here. Getting defensive line in the draft. Halton and Lawrence going to be some big-time pass rushers for them. Barrett going to be a nice run defender. And also Crawford can work in there too as a pass rusher. Linebacker, we go free agency approach. We weren't able to retain Devin Lloyd, but we do get Quay Walker and some experience there. So maybe Campanelli can be like, hey, we got this. We got this. Him and Full Little Khan, Jack Kaiser, Ventrell Miller as your main rotation there as well. So that is it for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Duval, let me know what you think. Agree or disagree. What would you do differently? But I hope you guys have a really good day, and let me know which team you want to see next.